Welcome back to Something More. I'm here with Tom Horn. It's been a fascinating discussion, and Tom has so many different books on different subjects, and it's we could sit here and talk all day, but we don't have all day. But before the break, I talked about a more current prophecy or more current prediction God has shown you that's going to come to pass. About a year ago, you had a dream. Mm-hmm. Tell me what that one was about.
Yeah, this was the most frightening, the most terrifying, and it kind of stands at odds with the fact that I'm a positive person and I like to speak positively. I don't like talking about things that are fearful. But this literally shook me to the bone. And we don't have time in this interview to go into the details. At first I thought I was looking at a giant dragon that was way up in the heavens, moving, undulating, serpent-like towards earth. But then I was pulled up above it, and looking down on it, I saw that it was actually a giant space rock. And the way it was turning as it was moving through space and the light of the sun was shining on it, it gave it the impression of being a great dragon that was moving through the heavens. Now, fast forward in that story, what I saw terrified me. I saw it impact the earth. It was catastrophic when it did. And when I woke up, I almost literally fell out of bed. This had more detail than any vision I had seen before. A lot of it is in the book, The Wormwood Prophecy. But when I woke up, I sat up in bed. I started to start writing down what I had seen. And it was as if a voice spoke in the room, and it said a single word. It said, Apophis. Now, I knew that there was an ancient Egyptian chaos dragon named Apophis, the enemy of light. I didn't know a lot about it. I also knew that NASA had named an asteroid Apophis, and I didn't know anything about that. And so my first mission, as soon as I got out of bed, went to my computer, turned it on, so I started doing research into the Apophis asteroid and all of the details around it and what NASA first said about it, what they're now today saying about it, and the potential for it to strike the Earth in just a bit over 9 years from right now. Of all dates, by the way, Friday the 13th,
in
April
2029. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's kind of scary, Tom. So what, especially believers hearing that, what should they do? I mean, we don't want to live in fear.
We don't want to live in fear, but of course, this is part of prophecy. The entire 8th chapter of the book of Revelation deals with what astronomers now, I learned this after the fact, actually believe is detailing the 4 elements of an asteroid impact on the Earth from each of the first 4 trumpets. It literally caused me to start reading the scripture differently. But when you say what should Christians do about it?
Right.
I read Luke 21, starting at 25 now, differently than I ever did 25 years as a pastor, but check out what it says. It says, there will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and the Greek word there, stars, is asteroids.
Really?
And upon the earth, distress of nations. That's exactly what I saw. Perplexity. That's exactly what I saw. A sea and the waves roaring. That's exactly what I saw. Men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things that are coming upon the earth. That's exactly what I saw. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. That's exactly what I saw. But then note how this ends. But then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. All of the ancients believed that asteroids were messengers of the gods, and in the Bible, it's a messenger of God himself. And the message is, lift up your head, look up. Your redemption is drawing nigh. Preaching the imminency of the second coming of Jesus Christ is something that's been missing in the church for the last few decades. But I actually believe that by 2025, people are going to be able to take a telescope at their home, look up into heaven, and they're going to see Apophis racing towards the earth. 24 months later, they'll be able to see it with the naked eye. And what I saw was everybody on the planet on their face begging God to deliver them from this menace that was coming. So I think this could actually initiate the next great awakening, a final revival, if you will, that will help to usher in literally millions and millions of people around the world. And then there's one other element about this, and there's a precedent for it in Scripture, and that is that the judgment could be averted. If enough people pray, if enough people turn to God and rend their heart, it says, instead of their garments, it could be averted. There's a pattern for that all through the Scripture.
Absolutely.
The book of Joel, if you will turn to me, I will send you a blessing instead of a cursing. The story of Jonah being sent into Nineveh, up and down the streets, you're going to be destroyed in 40 days.
So there is good news. Tom, thank you for being my guest on Something More, and thank you for watching us and visiting with us.
It is difficult to predict how close an object will come to Earth, or where it will hit. One such asteroid that fits this description was discovered in 2004, and initially appeared to have a chance of hitting Earth on April 13th, 2029.
Any object that's classified as an NEO has an orbit that crosses Earth's orbit. which means it will one day collide with Earth. It will collide with Earth. It's not just maybe. It will. It's just a matter of when. You know, we have an asteroid headed towards us, discovered in 2004, December. The reason why this is important is the very first calculation showed it might have been like a 1 in 10 chance that it would collide with Earth on April 13th, 2029. This is the size of the Rose Bowl, this thing. And it would be the biggest thing ever known to hit Earth in recorded history. During human occupation of the world, this would be the biggest thing we would know. So better data came along, and we learned it would not hit us then, but it could hit us the next time around.
And at that time, they actually speculated that there was enough of a serious chance that Apophis was going to impact the Earth in 2029 that they put it on their watch list. Later on, they decreased the chance that it's going to impact the Earth in a bit over 9 years from now. But I learned later that this is probably because they're involved in a cover-up, and that the chances of Apophis striking the Earth in 2029 is far greater than what they are admitting at this point. And by the way, in the book, I go into that. It's more than a conspiracy theory. I've interviewed and talked with astronomers, members of NASA, people with above top secret security clearance. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis from the Pentagon, who was a senior analyst there, put me in contact with impact specialists. People like Nathan Myhrvold, who is constantly listed in the top 100 critical thinkers, scientific thinkers in the world, a true polymath with over 800 patents to his name. He once ran the science department at Microsoft. One of the most brilliant men on earth has recently published a peer-reviewed paper in an astronomy magazine in which he accuses NASA of an absolute cover-up of the threat that is posed by both Apophis and some other asteroids. So I did all of this research and came to believe that, in fact, of all dates, Friday the 13th, April 2029, Apophis is going to strike the Earth. If, as I predict, it impacts the Earth in 2029, it is literally going to be equivalent to, scientists say, 65,000 atomic bombs the size of the ones that we dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II that literally sunk the Japanese island. They say that at a minimum, tens of millions of people will die, and possibly billions of people are going to die. NASA says that if this rock does hit the Earth, it's going to come down probably around the border of Mexico and California, so a highly densely populated area. So you can understand why this was such a terrifying vision to me. However, when Luke speaks of the signs in the asteroids, when the book of Revelation talks about what will happen in chapter 8, when this mighty rock called wormwood, which is what I believe this is, falls upon the planet, it all precedes a moment in which believers are to look up and lift up their heads because their redemption is drawing nigh. It is a message about the imminency of the second coming of Jesus Christ. And if you are a rapture believer, then of course you know that you're not appointed unto wrath, and you probably won't even be here when this event happens. But it is coming, and it is an opportunity, regardless of your eschatological or prophetic worldview, for believers of every type to take this as a moment to be preachers of the gospel. Paul said, "I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power, the dunamane, the dynamite of God that can convert from the Jew to the Gentile." And that is what I hope the message that is contained in the book, The Wormwood Prophecy, will do. Ignite a passion, because I did see in this vision as well, people everywhere, all around the world, on their face, begging God to deliver them from this menace. And there is a precedent in the scripture for God averting a judgment like he did with Nineveh when Jonah preached there. Like he says in the book of Joel, if you will turn to me with all of your heart and soul and mind, he says, then the locust plague won't come. I will send you a blessing instead of a cursing. And even one of the most famous European astronomers in the world today says there is a very real chance that Apophis will go through what he calls a window between Mars and Earth and be slingshot out into space only to return exactly 7 years later.